Good morning. I'll now call to order the November 3rd, 2022 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Business Meeting. Gary, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today. Clerk to the Board, Tony Mayernick. County Counsel, Stephen Madcore. Roll call, Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Smith.
Here. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Order will be enforced during this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite comments. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority Board. Gary.
Thank you, Chair. You're now meeting as a Housing Authority Board of Clackamas County. Joining you online is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Ann, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
There you are. Good morning, Ann. Thank you. This is entirely consent agenda. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Housing Authority Consent Agenda. Item 1, approval of a personal services contract with Clackamas Service Center Incorporated for mobile and/or site-based outreach and engagement services for Clackamas County residents experiencing homelessness and assignment of the contract to Clackamas County. Contract value is $186,500 for 8 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with Northwest Housing Alternatives Incorporated for emergency shelter services and assignment of the contract to Clackamas County. Contract value is $560,000 for 8 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of a board resolution to accept affordable housing stabilization funds and reduce tenant debt owed to the Housing Authority. Total value of funding is up to $205,968.75, funded through the state of Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you, Tony. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything off this consent agenda? Seeing none, Ann Leenstra, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Ann Leenstra has moved for approval of the Housing Authority consent agenda. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Leenstra.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Shull.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Ann, for attending and voting on this.
You're welcome.
I will now adjourn as a Housing Authority Board and convene as the Board of County Commissioners. Gary, what's up next?
Next, Commissioners, you have 3 public hearings. The first public hearing, approval of annexation CL 22-003 to County Service District Number 1. Ken Martin is your boundary consultant. He will present. Welcome, Ken, and go ahead, please.
Please introduce yourself, sir.
Ken Martin, I'm your boundary consultant. This is a simple annexation to the Service District, CCSD number 1. It's 2 acres, it's a single-family dwelling, and they just need to be in the district to receive service for that existing dwelling. It's inside the city of Happy Valley. We'd recommend approval.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions or clarifying comments on this? I will now open the meeting for public testimony on this particular item. Do I see anybody in the room who would like to testify on this particular boundary adjustment? I don't see anybody in the room. Tony, do you have anybody on Zoom?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I will now close the public hearing and ask if commissioners, is there any further discussion? I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve annexation CL 22-003 to County Service District Number 1.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved we approve the board order approving a boundary change proposal, CL 22-003. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion is approved 5-0. Gary, what's next?
Next public hearing is approval of annexation CL 22-004 to County Service District Number 1. Ken will also present. Go ahead.
Another annexation to the service district. This one is 38 acres, also within the city of Happy Valley. It's already received approval from them to build a 137-lot subdivision, and we recommend approval.
Any questions from commissioners on this one? Commissioner Scholl.
Mr. Martin, on this 38 acres, is this already sewer ready?
Is it sewer ready?
This is a sewer ready annexation for this property?
Well, the sewer is available in the street. We don't
Okay,
have
that's what I meant.
sewers.
Okay, good.
It hasn't been built yet, but yes.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will open the meeting for public testimony on this. Is there anybody in the room who wishes to testify on this particular annexation? Seeing none, Tony, is there anybody online who wishes to testify on this particular annexation?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, I will now close the public hearing and ask if there's any further discussion. Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I move we approve the board order approving boundary change proposal CL 22-004.
Seconded.
Commissioner Schrader has moved that we approve board order approving boundary change proposal CL 22-004. Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's up?
The next public hearing is approval of annexation CL 22-005 to County Service District Number 1. Ken will also present. Go ahead, Ken.
This is another annexation within the city of Happy Valley. It is 13 acres, and there is a proposal to develop a 44-lot subdivision on this property. We'd recommend approval.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any clarifying questions or comments?
Yeah, one question.
Yes.
Sir, how many acres is that one?
This is 13 acres.
13 acres.
Any other questions? I will now open the meeting for public testimony on this particular 13-acre annexation. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to testify on this annexation? Seeing none. Tony, is there anybody online who wishes to testify?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing on testimony for this annexation, and I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the board order approving boundary change proposal CL 22-005.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved that we approve board order approving boundary change proposal CL 22-005. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion?
Yes, Chair, just a comment.
Yes.
Relevant to our discussions we had on Tuesday, one with the sewer agency and the expansions that they are projecting and the costs that they've incurred as of today, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, collectively between what we've done in the last couple decades and what we're going to be doing in the next couple decades going forward. And annexing these properties in brings in SDCs and ratepayers that help defray the cost, and I think it's relevant to where the region expands because we have planned for the metro forecast, PSU forecast for population. This is one example, prime example of some funds to help defray that. If we don't have that growth, then that means all those costs will be incurred by the existing base, which will be exorbitant if it's done solely on the existing tax base or the rate base, customer base. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Any other comments? Seeing none, Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, very much. That concludes your public hearings. Next is the consent agenda. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, elected officials, item 1, approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. Finance, item 1, approval to accept allocated funding from the U.S. Department of the Treasury for the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. Allocated amount is $987,225.68. Funding is through federal ARPA allocations. No county general funds are involved. Juvenile, item 1, approval of an amendment modifying terms of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services for the provision of the county's participation in the United States Department of Health and Human Services Title IV-E reimbursement program. Amendment has no fiscal impact. Agreement value remains at $400,000. No county general funds are involved. Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of a board order vacating a right-of-way of an unused portion of County Road number 1769, commonly known as 98th Avenue. Vacation fee is $2,866.51. Funding is through petitioner. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a board order vacating a portion of Hood Avenue, a local access road. Vacation fee is $1,301.92. Funding is through the petitioner. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of right-of-way, easements, and fee property and authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions for the Johnson Creek Tributary Hideaway Court Culvert Replacement Project. Right-of-way budget is $15,000. Total project budget is $911,950. Funding is through the Damascus Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for right-of-way services for the Courtney Avenue Complete Street River Road to Oregon 99E project. Agreement value not to exceed $10,000. Project value is $5,661,421. Funding is through Federal Regional Flexible Funds Allocation Grant and County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. Item 5, approval of a board order authorizing purchase of 9 2022 Dodge Pursuit all-wheel drive Durangos from Withnell Dodge through State of Oregon Cooperative Contract 1651. Total purchase order value is $343,705.05. Funding is through Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, budgeted county general funds. Item 6, approval of a board order authorizing purchase of 5 2022 Ram Tradesman 2500 Crew Cab 4x4 trucks from Withnell Dodge through State of Oregon Cooperative Contract 1651. Total purchase order value is $157,407.05. Funding is through Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, budgeted county general funds. Item 7, approval of a board order authorizing purchase of 27 2023 Dodge Pursuit all-wheel drive Durangos from Withnell Dodge through State of Oregon Cooperative Contract 1651. Total purchase order value is $1,142,447.76. Funding is through Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, budgeted county general funds. Item 8, approval of a contract with KNL Industries Incorporated for the Barton Park East RV Campground Paving Project. Total contract value is $174,718. Funding is through an Oregon Parks and Recreation Department County Opportunity Grant, allocated county ARPA funds, and County Parks Fiscal Year 2023 Capital Improvement Project funds. No county general funds are involved. Health, Housing, Human Services, item 1, approval of an amendment increasing funding and reallocating budgeted funds through a subrecipient grant agreement with Cascade AIDS Project for HIV testing and counseling services. Amendment value is $3,500. Grant value is now $78,500 for 1 year. Amendment is funded through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a federal grant award from the U.S. Department of Justice for the Improving Reentry Education and Employment Outcomes Grant for individuals leaving incarceration, and a board order authorizing the Division Director of Children, Family, and Community Connections to accept the award. Grant value is $900,000 for 3 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of a revenue agreement from Care Oregon for the dental program Meaningful Language Access Payment Incentive Program to fund language interpretive services at Clackamas Health Centers. Projected revenue is $85,000 for 15 months. Funding is through Care Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Community College to provide transportation services to students. Agreement value is $315,505.34 for 2 years. Funding is through the House Bill 2017 Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Regional Coordination Program. No county general funds are involved. Item 5, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the duration of a subrecipient agreement with Northwest Family Services for homeless shelter services and rent assistance. Amendment value is $250,000 for 12 months. Agreement value is now $1,107,500 for 30 months. No county general funds are involved. Item 6, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the duration of the subrecipient agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for homeless shelter services and rent assistance. Amendment value is $250,000 for 12 months. Agreement value is now $702,500 for 30 months. No county general funds are involved. Item 7, approval of an amendment increasing funding to the cooperation agreement with Clackamas Volunteers in Medicine for construction expenses at the Clackamas Community College Health Center. Amendment value is $300,000. Agreement value is now $950,000. Funding is through Federal Community Development Block Grant Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 8, approval of an assignment addendum from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County of a personal services contract with Clackamas Service Center Incorporated for outreach and engagement services. Addendum has no fiscal impact. Contract value remains at $186,500 for 8 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 9, approval of an assignment addendum from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County of a personal services contract with Northwest Housing Alternatives Incorporated for emergency shelter services. Addendum has no fiscal impact. Contract value is $560,000 for 8 months. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services Funds. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you, Tony. Well done. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Commissioner Schrader has moved for approval of the consent agenda. Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Up next is public communication. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. However, we will not be reading them at the business meeting due to time constraints. I will now open the meeting for public testimony and take in-person testimony first. I have a few cards. Anybody else wishing to testify, please feel free to submit a card and you will be able to come up. First up, Les Poole. Please introduce yourself, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Les Poole. I live in beautiful Clackamas County. We're trying to keep it that way. I have a couple of thoughts, a couple of things to connect. In general, we're obviously in a situation where government is spending and investing tremendous amounts of money on various issues, including homelessness, houselessness, drug addiction, and other social problems. And in my experience, sometimes there's a tendency to feel like we have to act. We need to do something. And here in the county, what we're seeing right now is a rush on some of the efforts to deal with the housing emergency. And the most specific rush I can think of course, is the Project Turnkey application in Clackamas County in the unincorporated area. Last week, there were a lot of folks here. Some were in favor of Project Turnkey. I don't think the people opposed to purchasing motels or hotels in the Clackamas commercial area are opposed to Project Turnkey. I think what they're opposed to is what they're seeing in their own neighborhood. And it's so simple to consider them as NIMBYs or as insensitive. And in my experience, I've talked to 14 businesses there. I do my own homework. And I can assure you that the aversion to converting the Clackamas Suites Inn or the Comfort Suites Inn is very strong and well measured. These folks aren't just throwing up a no, they're asking for accountability, they're asking questions, and as we've seen in the past, there's a feeling that it's a rush job. Some of the neighbors have contacted me, and they're obviously talking, and we're seeing a lot of folks suddenly finding out what's going on. And outreach is critical. Public involvement is critical in a situation like this. I have a simple request, and that is, given the millions of dollars and the long-term cost to operate, the unknowns, the uncertainty about what kind of facility these would even be, I'm troubled that there hasn't really been a formal public hearing or public discussion on this. It's all going on in the background, and while myself and others are here during citizen comments, that's not an official hearing. So I would request two things, and one of them is that we have an official opportunity on the agenda for the public to weigh in, and the other, if I could, would be that we could see more financial analysis of what this is really going to cost, not up front, but over the next 5 years.
Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
forward. Up next, I hope that I pronounced the name correctly. Is it Dan Fettig? Is that correct, Dan Fettig?
I'm guessing it's Paris.
Can't read your writing, sorry.
Fine.
Come forward, please.
Yeah.
Please state your name and your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Paris Fettig. I am a resident of Clackamas County. I live in Estacada. I'm an Oregon licensed real estate broker. And I just have a series of questions that I could not find the answer to anywhere. I submitted them online with no reply. My questions are, what are the agreed sales prices of each hotel in consideration? Is there a sobriety requirement of the housing? And if so, how is it regulated? What is the plan for the current hotel staff left jobless as a result of the acquisition? What is the measure of success or failure of the program? And at what cadence will it be reviewed? What mental health services and drug recovery programs will be available? And how will the funding be increased for those programs to manage the additional capacity that we bring into the housing? What funding is available for maintenance, electricity, water, utilities, and additional costs that are accrued, potentially law enforcement? I assume you guys cannot answer. I've never done this before, so these are just my questions. But you guys can answer, right?
You have 2 minutes left, madam.
How do I find access to answer the questions.
Gary Schmidt, would you like to take a stab at that?
Sure. First, I apologize you didn't get a response, so you could email me directly, or it's bcc@clackamas.us, goes directly to the county commissioners. We do have a website on the county website that talks about Project Turnkey.
I've
that
read all the
answers
information.
some of this information, not all of it. I don't have all the answers offhand, but we'll certainly get it to you. We can answer all those questions for you. So.
May I also ask, is there like a written formal plan and agenda for it? Because there isn't access to it online, if there is.
The turnkey program is mentioned online. Right now, we're in a review process with property negotiations. A lot of that is, I'll just look to Mr. Madcore to help me, a lot of that's confidential until the seller has identified they're willing to accept the sale. So there's some things we can't share publicly yet, but we can certainly talk about the process and many of the questions you've answered.
Stephen, would you explain the state law regarding public disclosure of real estate negotiations? And I know we have a couple real estate people in the audience, so I'm sure you'll understand his explanation, and he's going to explain to you.
Certainly, Chair. Oregon law allows for the governing body to meet an executive session, which is a private session. It's not public, to discuss certain things, and one of those eligible conversation pieces is real property transactions. That's what acquisition of hotels, motels, or other properties would entail. We have had numerous conversations with the board and with H3S and other entities about these particular properties. The theory behind it is that if this discussion becomes public, that the government would be placed at a disadvantage and the owner would elevate the price, or there'd be competition out there for it. So in recognition of a lot of this has not been public, it will, but to answer your first question, there have been no sales. There have been no formal offers or acceptances. It's still in the early discussion phases.
Can I also ask how we came to those two specific hotels out of all other hotels outside of the fact that it's unincorporated Clackamas County?
Well, the location is significant because you don't have to partner with cities, and a lot of cities may pose objections to it. There was a list of properties that were presented to us by our retained broker, Colliers, as well as our H3S housing staff. So there's a whole host of them: price, location to services, transportation, healthcare, food, those types of locations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if this is a relative or not. Is there a Misty Fettig here? Please come forward. State your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Misty Fettig, and I was here last week.
Welcome back, by the way.
Thank you. You talked about canvassing the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked if it had been done, and we were told that it had. And I thought to myself, because I only live 3 doors down from the hotel that is one of the hotels that is proposed, I thought, well, that's strange. I didn't get anything. So I went home and I asked my neighbors. And they said, no one came here. No one left anything. There was nothing. They didn't even know anything, right? So I thought to myself, well, that's not right. How can people weigh in if they don't know? So I took a dollar store gigantic shower curtain. I made a sign on my van. I parked it in front of the hotel, and people all weekend long stopped and said, we had no idea. So as a result, and I believe it was 3-block radius that was supposed to be canvassed. Is that correct? Is that what I heard last week? I think. Okay, so I didn't do 3 blocks. I just did the 1 block around the hotel. And this is 1 pass on Sunday afternoon. All of these people got nothing. They didn't get a knock on the door. They didn't get literature left. I don't think that you can go forward without going backward and doing what was supposed to be done to begin with. So that's kind of my question is is it fair for people not to be able to weigh in?
Well, I don't
know?
disagree with you on that, and I'm going to let staff answer if you want that question answered now. Do you want to say more? I will allow you to say more after we answer the
all you could
first
do is
question.
answer the question. Ask the question. You weren't the one who was supposed to go do it, and
I
didn't do what
personally
they were
was not
supposed to
the
do.
one who did it, nor was I
Right.
personally the one who was supposed to do that.
that's what I said. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
So stay here.
Yes.
Because you have a few minutes left.
Yes.
Okay, Gary.
We had 2 county staff members that went door to door to every resident and business within a 3-block radius. They were supposed to, and clearly they did not reach your neighborhood. They were supposed to have left a flyer, and it appears that did not occur. There also was, we've done as much outreach as possible on the website here at the county. We had an email line and a phone line, all of those things. But we did have staff out in the neighborhood, and clearly, I can't explain why they would have missed that block, but they did tell me they have. I trust the staff that they did it.
Do you work during the day?
I do,
Oh.
at the house.
Do we know what
And my
time?
neighbors work from home.
Okay, do you know what
It
time?
was during daytime hours. I don't have the
I
exact
don't know.
hours, but.
Nothing was left behind either, nothing. This is an enormous list, and I didn't do 3 blocks. I can go get more if you need. I really feel like you have to go backward in time and correct this, because it's not fair. It's not right that they don't know. They can't have any concerns even thought of, let alone weighed in.
You're weighing in now, though.
I
You
am.
can say whatever you want right now.
I am.
And we do have
I
that
have
list in
serious
front of us.
concerns about.
We have the list in front of us
I-
that you submitted. Mhm.
Okay, my thought, this morning I had an epiphany, and I thought, okay, instead of it just being, okay, this is what we want to do, and there's pushback, what about just solutions in general? What would be the perfect solution? What would make the social workers be really happy and feel like their people were cared for? What would make the community feel safe and happy? And what would make you guys, I'm sure you're being pressured to spend money in an attempt to correct something. And so my question is, what does that look like? And I was thinking about the past, and maybe we could learn from the past. And it occurred to me, someone told me this before, something like our beloved Edgefield, right? It used to be called the poorhouse, which I think is a terrible, undignified, title. However, people could go there if they were unable to provide for themselves, and they could be given a modest space in turn for some effort. And that makes sense to me. Just shoving people in a very expensive box where they have nothing to do except for look at their flat screen TV and numb their brains with that. That doesn't make sense when you have people that have skills and gifts, even if they're disabled, even if they're elderly, they have gifts. They could be in an environment where they could care for one another. People that garden could garden. People that could, see well can clean windows. I mean,
I agree with you on
everyone
that.
wins.
I agree with you on everything that you have said.
Everyone wins.
I think
And you
there
guys
is a-
look smart.
And I think there's
It's
the
great.
assumption, if I could say, I think there's the assumption that that was not going to happen, but I don't think that's correct. I think there is thoughts out there that
I love
the
it.
folks-
I
yeah.
love it. And the spend of money is, to throw money at something that you're not even sure if it's going to be good for anyone versus waiting until you have a really fantastic plan like you guys did for the Veterans Village. I think everybody thinks that's a win, don't they? And so that's my question is, why throw money at something that you're not sure when, in fact, you could produce something that could be a model for the rest of the United States? You
Thank
guys
you.
could be the people who came up with the bottle bill.
Thank you, Misty, very
is
much. We
brilliant.
have another commissioner who wants to opine,
Sorry.
Commissioner
Oh,
Savas.
sorry.
Yeah, so Gary, I'd like to at least see if was there a handout that was given as
Yes.
well? I'd love to get a copy of the handout, find out which days that they did circulate that. It seemed to me that, certainly, I know a lot of people work from home, some don't. I do a lot of door knocking, period. So I certainly have very few people answer the door when I knock on the door currently as I'm campaigning out in the county. So I do know that getting people to come to the door sometimes isn't always successful, but leaving something at the door would be a good idea. And also, if that is a challenge and you don't get a lot of door answers, maybe it's a very modest fee to mail something to each of those households in a 3-block radius ought to be considered. I don't want to see what happened or what occurred the first round of turnkey when the Econo Lodge area, the adjacent neighborhood was never, again, that neighborhood as well. And our staff had said, yeah, we didn't do that neighborhood. but they instead solicited input from the local community organizations, but not the neighborhood. I'm not saying that happened here. I'm just saying that we ought to be more thorough about it, so we are in a defensible position. And I would also like to say that just to characterize where we are right now, we're in the exploration mode. We're not in the action mode. So I think, is that a fair assessment, Gary?
That is correct. Actually, once you formally get into an agreement with a purchaser of a potential hotel purchaser, then there's a formal outreach process with the community. So this is even pre-work before you make the decision. Then there's a separate community outreach process, a part of the phase 2, which is to come once you select an actual hotel.
I also think it'd be a good idea to the list that came up from the previous speaker about what other sites were considered, maybe to make that list public as well.
Okay.
It seems that this sort of thing, when I've talked to all these people, you know, it's unfortunate. This is a very important part of the process because the distrust that and integrity that, you know, surrounds this sort of thing is,
You were just
it's really
told
critical.
again that you would be notified a second time on the second part of the due diligence.
Yeah.
In fact, no other jurisdiction that I know of in Oregon, including the largest homeless center in Oregon, Portland, or Multnomah County, did the first part that this county did in going out and us engaging in you first. Nobody did that. Washington County didn't do that. Portland didn't do that. Multnomah County, they see a building, they buy it. Hasta la vista, community.
Okay.
We went out and engaged in you first. Marion County has 3 projects. They just went out, they turned them over to a nonprofit, Marion County.
Yeah.
They went out, the nonprofit did it, slam bam, thank you, ma'am. At least our staff went out and engaged you. So for you to say that you don't count or your opinions don't mean anything is not true. We have not made a decision. We are weighing all options. Gary, there's a second part of the due diligence that's happening, right? And I will say, how many tens of thousands of emails went out to folks? I mean, there was a huge, huge list from PGA, Public Government Affairs, that did this. I've got this huge spreadsheet that's pages and pages and pages, legal size. Many and many comments came in, and they're still coming in. And so, if your door was not knocked on, I apologize for that. We thought all doors were covered, but you'll get more opportunities to voice your opinion. And then take a look at the plan. We have not made a decision. And this board, I think, to speak for all of us, do realize you just don't buy a place and put people in it and expect nothing from them. I don't think there's a single one of us would
Great.
think that.
That's great.
So those statements I find a little bit disingenuous because that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And that doesn't how you cure homelessness. That's not how you cure homelessness. So thank you for coming forward. I appreciate your comments very much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate the list that you've given us, and we'll be doing more outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Jolene Monroe. Please come forward, state your name, area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I'm Jolene Monroe. I live in Clackamas County, and I work at the Greenhouse Square. And I believe it was dropped off the first week of October because it was a day that I was not at work.
What was dropped off?
The flyer, just kind of continuation of her comment. And I called twice the number on the back and got no response. I had no idea what it was all about or if I even needed to see what it was about because I get little pamphlets and sales things dropped off. So then when I actually heard what it was about, and I called and left a pretty fired up message on the voicemail of Claire O'Keeke. Last week after I left here, I had a meeting with her and the Deputy District Attorney Bill Stewart, Sarah McClurg, and the Clackamas Mental Health Supervisor Jeffrey Anderson, because I'm trying to learn about this and how it's going to impact my area. And I agree with the last speaker. It would be nice to see what the actual plan is, what they're going to be doing all day. Are they going to be loitering around our businesses? The vetting process, are these going to be criminals? Are they going to be sex offenders that have been released and now they're out? Who are these people? I mean, do we get to find out how they're chosen to be in this 90-day facility? And then what happens after the 90 days if they don't participate in the program? Are they just out on the street in our area? I shared my concerns with them last week, and they said they're going to attempt to ramp up their communication with our little center and, try to make us feel a little safer. But it would be great if we could see the actual plan, because everything feels like a blanket statement. Oh, we're going to improve services. How? What's the actual plan? So seeing, I guess more detail would be wonderful. And again, yeah, I think all the businesses I spoke to, they were on the same page as I was. They got this little flyer, didn't know what it was about. I've spoken to people in the neighborhood, same thing. They were not notified. They found out, and some people went on the website, and it said comments were done as of October 31st. Some people I spoke with thought this is already a done deal, and they haven't even tried to reach out because they thought it was already completed. So there's a lot of confusion in the community. So if you could clear up anything, would be great.
Thank you very much. More information is coming. Up next, Marshall Watman Turner. Please correct that. Sir, introduce yourself, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Smith, Commissioner Schul, Fisher, Schrader, and Savas. Thank you for this opportunity. I am a 30-plus year resident of Clackamas County, an Oregon native, and I serve as the pastor of the St. Paul's United Methodist Church, which recently celebrated the 60th anniversary. St. Paul's United Methodist Church was very involved in the founding of the Clackamas Service Center over 50 years ago, and with the many other churches that have been represented here, membership and clergy, we are all very engaged with serving our neighbors for community benefit. When we had the wildfires in 2021, our churches opened themselves up to be smoke shelters for those who had to flee their homes. When we had the freeze in February of 2021, again, our churches opened themselves up to be shelters for everyone who needed shelter, including folks who lost electricity and heat. These same churches are also looking at long-term solutions and how we can best steward all of our resources, our property, our facilities, our people, to be involved in long-term housing solutions. Last week, several of those who spoke on behalf of some of the churches mentioned the Land and Housing Coalition, which is a coalition that is Portland Metro-wide. And here in Clackamas County, there are many churches involved in the Land and Housing Coalition to look at long-term solutions. So I would say these are churches that are not fly-by-night or flash in the pan. They are long-term citizens and committed to the well-being of our neighbors. Specifically, Chair Smith, I really appreciated your facilitation of a Clackamas Business Alliance forum a couple of weeks ago, and I found that extremely helpful, and I think addressed many of the questions that I hear being expressed here about the fears, particularly of the neighbors. And I think along with an informational flyer about the potential for siting, I think it would be extremely helpful to have maybe a 1 or 2 pager about how the county would be operating these facilities so that your goals of homelessness being rare, short-term, and non-reoccurring, that you will be working together with community members to make that a reality. I think rarely in our lives do we have the opportunity to save a life. And I think all of us believe that if we were presented with that opportunity, we would do our best to do what we could, even if it meant risking some of our own well-being to save a life. And I hope that we can all work together to save lives through Project Turnkey.
Thank you very much for coming forward. I think maybe it's assumed that this Project Turnkey will operate in such a way, but and it's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. If you look at Clackamas County, we're probably the only county that has a homeless population in the state that has not purchased project turnkey. We tried it a year ago in the Oregon legislature, and they said, here's the money you can use this for. We had 2 hotels in the queue, and public outcry said no. So I said, okay, we need to go back and redo it. But I will say, if we do nothing, it will not help the homeless population. And I never thought in all of my days of my life that I would be dealing with this situation right now like we are. And the pastor gave me an idea, Gary. I facilitated the Clackamas County Business Association Zoom meeting and also the North Clackamas County Business Association Zoom meeting. Are those online so these people can take a look at those? And so I want to have you get those links, because at those meetings, the business community and whomever wanted to offered up questions. We had Bill Stewart, the Assistant District Attorney, talks about how they prosecute the crimes and work with the people. We had a representative, a sheriff's department lieutenant come. When calls are made, they go out and they arrest people. And not all these people belong in jail, and that's part of the problem. If you're mental illness or addiction, you do not belong in the jail as a criminal. You belong in a rehab facility where you get clean and you accept responsibility for your behavior and your future development. And we all know that, right? Also, one of the biggest statistics is glaring us fat in the face, and you all know this. Even the green shirts in the room know this. The leading cause of homelessness is the high cost of housing. I mean, it's horrid. And you know how much it costs to fill a tank, and you know how much it costs to go to the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. We hear you. And if the recession or the inflation continues, the homeless population will continue, because there are many people who are living on the border. So we must do something. And to do nothing, I believe, is not the answer. We do have a lot of money coming in to county coffers. And we've been very selective, and we've been very careful, because Clackamas County is a huge county, a huge geographic county. We have listened to communities that said no. We have listened to cities that have said no. We have a couple cities that actually want Project Turnkey. Guess what? They have no facilities. So that's a problem too. So as we go forward, we are listening. There's some good links here, and I believe some of you may have listened to the links on this, but we have a couple more commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Schrader. Schrader?
Yeah, I just asked Commissioner Savas, there is a name of the project that we've been working on, and it sounds like this community could benefit from that, and that is the Neighborhood Livability Project. I know that they have had numerous meetings on the McLaughlin corridor, talking with residents about the same issues you're concerned about, crime, the drug use, things of that sort. I'm wondering if there is a way to make sure that that same program can actually work with neighborhoods in the area. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the Veterans Village and why that was a success. And I will tell you that Commissioner Savas was a real champion of that. So both of us went down to Lane County. We talked with Commissioner Pat Farr, because he's kind of the champion of providing housing for people in Lane County, and we looked at their model. One of the things that we did with the Veterans Village, and we also had pushback there, the businesses there were just kind of, oh, brother, this is going to bring crime, it's going to bring this, it's going to bring that. So we listened to that. So what we did there is, it's what you call an intentional community. So there are people on site, it's good, Do Good Multnomah, all right, that are always there with the site. It is a sober site, for example. It gives people kind of a time and a space to just live quietly. And it's not permanent housing, okay? But what happens is you have 24-hour folks there that provide property management, mental health responders, and caseworkers. So that's the model that works for the Veterans Village. The other thing is, then we had the opportunity to build veterans housing in Oregon City. So a lot of those folks who maybe started at the Village now have some permanent housing. So when you talk about something like turnkey, and right now, truly, it is just preliminary. We're just looking at sites. We don't know what site it's going to be, at all, okay? So you need to understand that, the due diligence and all of these other legal things that we need to be doing ahead of time. But the whole plan, no matter where this lands, is going to be an intentional community where people who have issues and problems with drugs or whatever else it is, get the treatment, get the resources they need, so you're not going to have that level of what you're experiencing now is people being housed there with, just like you said, they're just there. And they don't have that wraparound. But the whole piece of these intentional communities, and that's why the Veterans Village has succeeded. The businesses around there have been very happy with it. And I believe we're looking at this point and even actually expanding it. But people just not are left there. They have people there to work with them continually. They have a place to cook. They have a place to go to the bathroom. They have a place to shower. And it's been a huge success. And I want to thank Commissioner Savas for that because he was instrumental. You even brought those pods down yourself, didn't you, I think, to get that ready. So I guess what I want to tell people is give us a chance to, okay, we don't know if it's going to be in your area or not. We're not even that far. But I do want to assure people this is not just going to be us abandoning people in a local community. Actually, a lot of times, and I've read some national reports on this, actually the area gets cleaned up and all the things that you deal with people who are in survival mode, dumpster diving, all this other stuff, it actually goes away. So if you want some of that information, I'll be glad to get that to you as well. So just, I'm sorry. I think the only thing I feel sorry about, I'm sorry if you did not get information in a timely manner. And I know that my colleagues and our administrator, they're going to remedy that, okay? And it's good that we know that so we can make sure we do it better, okay, from here on out with our communities out there. So anyway, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate Commissioner Schrader bringing up some of the things I was going to speak about, so I'll just cover a few things. We saw this crisis coming a long time ago, and I was pleased that my colleagues on the commission back 5-6 years ago agreed to make housing, home building, affordable housing a top priority, knowing that this crisis was coming, and it has simply gotten worse since that time. So the Veterans Village was a model of how can we do it right with no or little impacts to the neighborhoods and not do it like it's going wrong to the county to the north, if you will. And I saw enough models and did enough research on it to see that we can do it right. Lane County had a few models where they did it right and they took responsibility. These are secured facilities that they'd had. You can't just walk in and nor can anyone come in and supply them with narcotics or anything else like that. So these are very intentionally designed. But what we did do was part of that success. It never would have happened, frankly. The administrator at the time, Donald Krupp, and myself and Commissioner Schrader joined in on leading the internal interdepartment disciplinary team to tackle this and to work together across all disciplines so that we could say to all the neighbors there that if this goes wrong, something goes wrong, we're going to be all over it. We're going to guarantee that nothing's going to go wrong. And we had to have assurances from all those departments, and we had to have the action and the leadership there to make sure that all those departments were there: sheriff's office, law enforcement, the court, the district attorney's office, building, water, sewer, every aspect of the county that could touch this and help with this was there. So that model, frankly, I think is what we really need to employ, because the idea was we'll start with this. If it works as a pilot project and we'll adopt it, which we did, then we will carry this forward and take the next step should that crisis actually grow, which it has grown. So we have heard from businesses in the areas where, they don't have, I mean, they're being, somewhat dealing with some vandalism or people coming in there with some drug and alcohol issues, and they're currently disrupting businesses, not near this shelter, by the way, not at all, but where we don't have anything. So the idea is that to help the businesses and to help the neighborhoods is to house these people and get them in a better place. So by doing these, we can ideally help cure or solve some of these problems and help some of these people transition out. My concern simply is that we don't have that dedicated interdisciplinary team as we did before, and I want to make sure that when we do this, that we follow the model the pilot model as we designed it, and not, again, we do not want to allow Clackamas County to slide into the peril, I think, that some neighborhoods are dealing with in Portland or Multnomah County and in other areas around the state and the country. So we got to do better, and we will do better. That's my goal. I'm committed to that. Again, we're exploring this. I think having other models, it doesn't have to be hotels, by the way. Project Turnkey could be an apartment building, and we should have explored that as well. So maybe we will. Maybe we should be exploring all opportunities. So at least I can say that I hope that we can remain committed to working as a team and maybe rebuild that housing task force with that interdisciplinary thing from the top to the bottom, and making sure that whatever guarantees we commit to for any community, whether it's a business community or a neighborhood community, that we can abide by them. And I'm still of the belief that we should not have these kind of shelters adjacent to neighborhoods. That's my personal opinion, and it's not it's a learned one from talking to other people where it went right and where it went wrong. So I think that is something that we ought to really value and say, okay, because where they have worked, frankly, and worked well, have really been in non-neighborhood settings in general. That's across the state and other states. I'll conclude my comments there.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for coming in and doing your public testimony this morning. It's very helpful for us to hear from you. This morning in America, of the 3,400 counties, hundreds of counties are having the same discussion. They have the same problem. The county is where the buck stops here. We can't turn around and defer the problem to somebody else. There is no somebody else. But we have to deal with the effects of decisions made at levels of government above us. At the national level, issues about housing, restrictive land use laws, open national borders, the flow of drugs pursuant to those open borders. And in the state of Oregon, we have to react to things like Measure 110 and other decisions made by other entities in the area regarding law and order that affect crime, homelessness, and the problem we're dealing with this morning. In the last year, hundreds of millions of dollars in the form of grants from the federal government, state government, have flown through the 3 counties in the metro area. In the last 20 months, $250 million has been collected in taxation from the supportive housing services measure from Metro. The turnkey, so there's a huge effort, a huge problem. The turnkey piece is a small piece of the overall effort to reduce the problem we see in our society. This county, just so you know, has got a active staff that works on housing, solving housing problems, alleviating suffering, and we're working on different projects to call safety off the street projects to get people off the side of the road into a safe place. And those projects are not just a hotel, but tiny house villages, maybe a tent village, maybe a place to park your RV, maybe a place for somebody living out of their car to park in a safe place. But these take time, and I agree that government needs to move with urgency. We need to be economical in our approach to this problem. Some of the turnkey things we're looking at are very expensive. We need to be sensitive to property owners. They deserve the same level of respect and concern as the person living in the tent right outside their door. And we need to be concerned for the community overall. I believe that it's very important that we give tough love. A hand up, not a hand out. Without personal responsibility, there is no fixing this problem. Finally, we need, and we are working on improving our ability to provide mental health assistance, drug addiction assistance, to make homelessness short-term and infrequent. I share those things with you this morning because that's kind of a picture of the big picture on this problem. You know, it is a complex problem, and very few states, very few counties are successful with this. We'll be successful when we give the tough love, the hand up, not the hand out, and we must expect personal responsibility no matter who the situation, what the situation is, or who the person is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. I just see no one else in the room who wants to testify in person. Rick, you know how to hand your card in, don't you?
Yeah, well.
You're not new to this rodeo. Come on up.
How'd you know I was going to a rodeo? Rick Dodge, Clackamas County.
And thank you, sir. Area of residence?
Milwaukee. Now I'm really confused because I thought that this whole thing was strictly pertaining to buying hotels. And because I've been corrected many times. I came today to support my neighbors who've spoken. And I think it's clear that you know, we're concerned about the people too. Now, as far as the, last night I got a call from the gentleman that owns a liquor store. And don't put any conclusions. I'm not quite sure where he got my number, but matter of fact, I think if I'm remembering her name correctly, Miss Monroe, who has a business in that same green tree, can relate to what he said to me. And I was hoping that he's here today. He said he would try. Nevertheless, the amount of trouble that they've had over there keeps growing and growing and growing in information. Now, I stood out there with Misty in her van this last weekend, and for a couple of hours. She was out there all day, and the amount of people that stopped, even just in the time that I was there, I don't want to rehash what's already been discussed. Everybody said, well, gosh, we didn't know about this, and so on and so forth. And I guess in my confusion, I'm a little encouraged because we've talked about that Veterans Village being the model that's working, and yet that property next door sits there. So I was corrected the other day to some extent. I don't remember how or what, but this was only about the hotels. Now, and then I get now, Commissioner Sonia, I got this in the mail or something. That's yours, and I think it's on all the campaign slogans that you want to support small businesses and keeping neighborhoods safe, and I can appreciate that, because that's what we all want. And I'm going to, with my 13 seconds left, just say that I'm here to support my neighbors and appreciate all your considerations to keeping us safe and happy, and thank you.
Thank you for coming up, Rick. We will be releasing soon, Gary, a housing report on the monies that have come in since SHS, the Metro Bond, Turnkey, all the other pots of money that have come in to our housing department, and what projects have been constructed, what are in the pipeline, and what is to come. It's just not housing. It's a lot of different factors that go into helping people who need homes and services and so forth. So that'll be released soon. It's in the making, so that's coming up soon. Do you know when that's going to be?
December some point.
December, good, okay, thank you. I haven't seen no further people, any additional people in the room. Tony, do we have anybody online?
Madam Chair, I have one registered online. I will start with Bill Weir. Bill, please state your name and area of residence. You will have 3 minutes.
Yes, this is Bill Weir in Damascus. And good morning, Chair Smith and commissioners. I went to the Clackamas Inn area last week, and I haven't been there in recent years, but I did for decades, going to Fred Meyer or hopping on to 205. It's a location that has congested vehicle traffic, heavy traffic day and night. It has to be allowed with 205 taken into consideration. It's commercial only. I saw no residential properties, not even apartments or condos, only an older trailer park. Fred Meyer is across the street with packed parking most of the day and into the late evening. The sex video place is right next door. Within walking distance is a store that retails sex videos and other sex products. There's a deep gully in the back of the inns, starting about 50 to 75 feet of what I could estimate that, and it is fenced, but I think it would be a magnet for children. It doesn't appear to be suitable for families with children. In the next door mall, there are taverns and a state liquor store. In both directions, on 82nd, taverns that offer alcohol. A little ways down in walking distance is a pub. I believe it is critical, given the potential consequences of your vote on this when it comes up, that each commissioner, before casting a vote, preface with, quote, "I have not personally visited the subject property," unquote, and then vote either no or yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, anybody else?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now close the public communication portion of this meeting. Gary, what's next?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Next is Administrator Update. That's me. One quick thing before we go. For our speakers here, Adam from our Health and Human Services staff is sitting right here in the corner. If you'd like to talk to him either right now or when the meeting ends, he'd be happy to answer some of the questions you had at the meeting today. So that's available for you if you'd like to do that. There he is right there. Thank you. All right. I'd like to share some good news about the good work of our county staff. Today, I want to highlight our Transportation Maintenance Division staff in the Department of Transportation and Development. This staff consistently receives compliments from the public on the excellent work they do to keep our roads safe and maintained. Here are just some examples of some positive feedback our staff has received. Someone in Barton area wrote, "I drive Baker's Ferry Road recently, and there are great improvements in safety. Thank you." From the Sandy area, "Thank you for doing a great job of paving Wildcat Mountain Drive. Your team did the job so quickly. Our community greatly appreciates this improvement." from Oak Lodge area. Sincere thanks to Colby Taylor for cleaning up the debris and clearing drains near Arista Drive. I am grateful for your help and quick response. From the Damascus area, thank you for paving Orient Drive. It looks and feels great. The intersection of Orient Drive and Revenue Road is so much smoother. From the Altamont area, thank you for sweeping Johnson Creek Boulevard. The crew did an excellent job. There are many, many more, so thank you to our transportation maintenance crew for their work on these particular projects and all the work they do all year long. That is my good news update for today. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. Love to hear these nice stories. It's now time for Commissioner communication. I believe Commissioner Schrader, you're up first.
Yeah, I'm just going to encourage everyone to vote. We have big elections coming up, but I do want to say something really nice about the people that I work with up here. Commissioner Fisher has been a friend and an ally, not only with housing, but also I think on working on all the issues that we've done here in Clackamas County. I've been a little worried because I do want to make it clear that all 5 of us, quite frankly, are opposed to tolling on I-205. There's been some misunderstandings out there. And one of the things that I think it's important for us is that when we are giving information out there, please make sure it's accurate. Please make sure it's correct. I often call this time of the year the silly season. It's hard on everybody. It's hard not knowing, what's going to happen next. I have a philosophy that whoever is elected to serve this county, if I am elected to serve with them, I will serve with them with as much help and confidence. We are nonpartisan. I don't look at party when it comes to this. And I just want to thank Commissioner Fisher for all the work she's done. She has been a champion of housing. She has a past record of working with people with disabilities. She has a disabled daughter. And thank you. It's been a good 4 years, and good luck. Okay, and now I'm going to say that about my friend Commissioner Savas to my left. He has been a true champion of housing in this county. I don't think without his effort and without his push forward, we would have gotten that Veterans Village pulled together. You have always worked hard on those issues. You have been a good friend. I have appreciated your financial acumen as we tried to see what the cash flow was for supportive housing services. Now those supportive housing services, the dollars are coming in, and it gave us enough time to basically integrate our sticks and bricks with our housing services, with our housing authority that builds the stuff, as well as our services, as we just talked about recently. When we do these kinds of, whether it's turnkey or whatever, we always try and provide those wraparound services to people. So all the behaviors that they're dealing with because they're in crisis, it helps them move through that, and we can get them into permanent housing. So thank you, Commissioner Savas. Good luck. You've been a good friend and colleague. And I am going to say one more thing about housing. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to visit with Senator Merkley. We brought him to our Hillside Manor area, and that is an area where we have renovated our apartment buildings. Gary, I can't remember what the number, I should know off the top of my head how many people are in that unit, but this is Hillside Manor, and we are also redeveloping their World War II housing. We have housing there that was built in World War II. It's not very dense. We have gotten money from Metro. We have gotten money from, we're hopeful that Senator Merkley and Senator Wyden will hopefully get us an additional $4 million to redevelop that area for higher density. If we get those dollars, we are also hopeful that we will have 75% of those new units. We'll start, the apartments has been done, we're starting phase 1 of the other piece. We'll really be working with people 60% and below of area medium income, with a particular emphasis on 30% and below area medium income. He asked a lot of good questions. Our staff is going to follow up with him on that, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that we get the federal dollars as well as all the local dollars. We have leveraged to continue to move that project forward. And thanks, everybody, for coming out today. I know these are difficult topics that we have to talk about. And I also enjoy, just by the way, working with Chair Smith and my colleague, Commissioner Shull. So, okay, let's end on a happy note today, folks, okay? All right.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Schrader, I appreciate your kind words and the collegiality that
well deserved, Commissioner Fisher.
We really do experience on this Clackamas County Commission, which may not always be recognized. I want to thank Rick Dodge for highlighting the goal of really that I think it's all of us on this dais to protect and preserve the quality of life we have in Clackamas County. We have such a special place here, and it really takes looking through all of our policy decisions through that lens of the balancing of how do we really push through effective policy. As the commissioner who gets the honor and privilege of serving as the ex officio member for the Metro Homeless Services Oversight Committee and also on the Tri-County Planning Body for the Homeless Services Measure, I want to emphasize that the focus that we've been pushing for through these additional dollars is not just how many people are successfully housed, but how we are reducing homelessness. It is really important that we develop the metrics so that we can actually measure our success. Through the pandemic, we were able to receive many dollars through COVID relief dollars, FEMA dollars that housed sheltered people in hotel, motel, shelter, and were able to build capacity in helping people be stably housed. And that has been very successful. So carrying that on with through Turnkey is a tremendous opportunity. I am looking forward. I love the questions that were asked today. Absolutely was writing them down and just really embraced them. When we were looking at Turnkey before, I'd asked many of those questions and got some very good information from our staff at the time that when we would if we operate the facility, we will save substantial dollars instead of renting on a room-by-room basis, which we are doing now. So we do have a duty, as much as our duty is to assist people, it is also to make sure we are being fiscally responsible with the dollars that we receive. It's very, very important that we look at all of those factors and balancing all of it. I couldn't let today go by without mentioning that we had many members of our AFSCME employees in the room. We have one gentleman left here in the back of the room. But when I started my career in Multnomah County as a developmental disabilities case manager, I was a member of AFSCME Local 88. And I was just 22 years old starting my career, and I didn't know a lot about what a collective bargaining unit or the workforce support that we had. I didn't know. I was just entering the workforce. But I was so impressed with just how the bargaining unit just helped with issues that would arise in the workplace through our union shop steward. And that was what really instilled in me the importance of working people and representatives throughout our collective bargaining units throughout our workforces. And so I've always been a proud voice for working people. We'll always continue to do that and appreciate the engagement and recognize and appreciate the hard work. Thank you so much for all that you do for Clackamas County. And with that, please, I'm going to reiterate what Commissioner Schrader said. Please vote all the way down the ballot. There are many issues that are on there, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, Chair Smith.
You're welcome. Commissioner Savas, you're up next.
Great, thank you. I was just thinking how long I've been working with ASME. I think it goes back to 2003, so that would be 19 years. So not 19 years with ASME. And I think my learned lesson, if anything, I won't say really a lesson, but my learned experience has been, and prior to getting involved in public service 25 years ago, as an employer, was trying to find people and having a stable workforce, and how important that really was to serve the customers in which I had. So very unsettling sometimes when you promise a job or a particular product out at a certain time and someone gets sick or someone has a family emergency, you're not able to deliver on that, or you don't have the workforce there or the trained workforce. So I've always had a sharp focus on and an appreciation on making sure that your workforce and are well respected and in place, and the conditions and their pay and so forth is commensurate with the service that they provide. And it's a two-way relationship. I mean, it works both ways. In order for me to be successful, the business to be successful, and to keep people employed, we had to do good work, good quality work, and deliver things on time. So it's a two-way street. So glad to see our folks here today. Want to just touch on really the topic of the day, apparently, and I appreciate Commissioner Schrader's comments under her communication. Sometimes we all have our heart in this right place, but sometimes it's about how we do it, how we apply, and what the answers are. And this is, as Commissioner Fisher kind of outlined, her assignment on the county board is on the housing side, and mine is more on the transportation side and so forth. And when it came time, when we realized that the promised $24 million on July 1st, 2021 did not arrive, and it turned out that it was only a couple $100,000, and the trend line was looking like for the next 5-6 months it was going to be that way. All the digging and the research was, how did we get here? How did this happen? And I was just backtracking, figuring that this was all figured out for us, right? That Metro had it all together, that the advocates had it all together, and that they would, where's the 24 million? What happened to it? And it wasn't too long before, pretty soon, people were saying, because they didn't understand what we were doing, we were trying to keep people housed coming out of the COVID and the fires. We were trying to keep people housed. So we took all that money we did have and redirected it to keeping people retained in hotel rooms or wherever they were. And that's where all of our money went. We sheltered all those folks, and that was our priority. And I appreciate the board making that a priority when we passed the Housing Authority budget, specifically to keep those people in their place as opposed to because that funding was going to disappear. So we scrambled, and then the other scramble was, okay, now that we have all this stuff, and how do we bridge between now and the time that all these Metro housing dollars will show up? Not sure when and how much, but will show up. And I appreciate working again with staff and Commissioner Schrader and putting together, and also want to appreciate working with Councilor Christine Lewis from Metro and taking my calls and sitting down and trying to work out a loan. And the first loan was $5 million to bridge that, and the next loan was another $5 million to bridge that. It wasn't easy. It was contingent upon a number of things, and we were trying to act as swiftly and responsibly and compassionately as possible to get that underway. But while all that was happening, we were being accused of cutting $8.1 million of supportive housing services, and that myth continued all the way until the end of the year. And it wasn't really basically addressed until we could actually sign the contract with Metro and disclose that, by the way, we did spend the money. We didn't cut 8.1, we spent 11.3, I believe it was, and we had to prove to all those folks that what we did do. But it was the politics, frankly, that interfered with that. And now it's election season, of course, so it's full steam ahead. People are distorting things, and it's the nature. Don't think I've ever experienced an election, Commissioner Schrader, since I've been here, where the facts didn't matter, and crazy things just get made up, and so suddenly the opposite of everything you do is somehow that you don't do this and you don't do that. And geez, fortunately, what we do in public is public record, and fortunately, we have that to fall back on. But we have committed that, and we're trying to figure out a solution to how we do this. We have the resources there. Now we have a staffing crisis, which is why some of those supportive housing services are not rolling out as quickly as possible, why we're not building as much housing, even though we're ahead of our target, by the way. We're ahead of our target for building affordable housing. So we are building things. We opened up Tukwila Springs and Gladstone. We did Hillside Manor, 100 units there. We have projects going up. We have thousands of housing projects that are taking place, whether it's private sector or it's with the county or the housing authority. So there's a lot of good things that are happening. But it's certainly not meeting the demand. The demand is much higher than what we are building, and I am concerned about the sustainability of some of these programs. And if we do not make a measurable mark as a region, when this supportive housing services measure expires about 8 years from now, 9 years from now, if we haven't done a good enough job on this, and the voters say no, then that's going to mean a lot of programs that are in place are going to face a cliff. A financial cliff, and there's nothing other than making that all go away, and that concerns me. So we got to get it right, and we got to do it, and we got to do it right, and we got to do it responsibly. And I was, again, pleased that I could jump in and help with getting that $10 million secured to jumpstart this program. We weren't able to take advantage of all of that, but we're working hard on this problem, and I want to make sure that we do it right, and we don't end up with the crises, the neighborhood crises and the crime and so forth that's taking place in Portland. We cannot allow this county to go down that path. We've got to do better. We can do better. We proved we got a model, and we need to capitalize on that model and take advantage of every element we've done there and do more. And I look forward to working with the Commission in the future to do just that. So with that, I conclude my comments, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, good morning, Clackamas County, and thank you to everyone who came in to speak today. Thank you, AFSCME representatives who came in today. It's good to see you here. And good morning to the ladies from Hoodland Park, Hoodland Fire District. Welcome. On the Metro urban growth boundary land swap issue, Metro was to go out and to do public outreach on it. But a couple of weeks ago, when I sent some questions to some of the local community planning organizations, the chairs of those organizations weren't familiar with what was going on. So I was surprised when the chair of the Park Place Redland Road CPO, Martin Meyer, contacted me and was asking questions about this land swap thing. What came to my mind was the importance of the community planning organizations in county government. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the grassroots level politics occur. And I really enjoy working with the CPOs. They're the government entity in unincorporated Clackamas County that can provide this board with a great deal of information. So I asked Caroline Hill, my policy advisor, if she couldn't get with the staff to see what we can do to encourage greater participation with our CPOs. And if you're in a CPO, thank you for your work. If you live in unincorporated Clackamas County and you don't know what CPO you're in, you can contact the county and find out. It's great to get involved. We look forward to your participation. On the Canby Chamber of Commerce lunch this last Tuesday, I had a great time down there. That chamber is very dynamic. Every time I go to Canby, I really enjoy that city. And Mayor Hodson and his city council are doing a great job in a growing and very well-loved city. Thank you again for a very nice afternoon in Canby. On the Cities of Clackamas County dinner, last Thursday, Oksana and I had the privilege to attend the dinner in Milwaukee, hosted by the city of Milwaukee. It was a great dinner. Mayor Gamba and a city council were there, and his staff gave a briefing on some of the things going on in that excellent city of Milwaukee. And then we walked down a block or so from where the dinner was to their new library, a very, very nice Library, a new focal point for the city of Milwaukee. And thank you again, Mayor Gamba and the Milwaukee City Council for a very, very nice evening. On the turnkey project that we heard so much about today, I want to learn more about some of the efforts going on in the county to deal with the homeless. And so I asked for a meeting with the owner of the Econo Lodge in Milwaukee, Durgesh Patel, with reps from Our Father's Heart, reps from the Clackamas County Housing staff, and my policy advisor. We sat and discussed management intricacies of hotels that are used for supportive housing. I learned a great deal, and I thank everybody who was there to answer my questions on that day. On the Warm Springs Reservation, as most of you might know, that a portion of the reservation is in Clackamas County. And I received a briefing on Tuesday from Policy Advisor Tracy Moreland on the history of the Warm Springs Reservation and its 3 tribes. And I would like to meet with Tribal Council and get to know them better, and maybe then after that encourage a meeting between the Tribal Council and this board so we can see how we can work together to improve what we do here in the county and how we can improve what's happening on the reservation. On the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, MPAC, we met last week. The thing from last week I want you to know about was that the letter this board signed regarding the TriMet Forward Together was a featured item on the meeting. And then next Wednesday is the next MPAC meeting. On that agenda is the Regional Transportation Plan Needs Assessment and Performance Measures, and also a topic, MPAC recommendation of the UGB exchange considerations, which they have our letter already. And by the way, that letter is on the agenda as another featured item for next Wednesday. And the final thing we'll discuss next week is the factors of homelessness, regional cooperation, just an informational thing. And then one last thing here on upcoming items. This Saturday, I'll be at the Boring Damascus Chili Dinner, always a good time. On Monday, I'll be at the Sunnyside West Mount Scott CPO meeting. And finally, a thought for today. Quote, I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. Comes from Cato from 234 BC, Latium, Italy, a Roman statesman, orator, and the first Latin prose writer of importance. And with that, thank you, Clackamas County. Have a good day.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Next week is the election day, and as everybody knows, I will reiterate again, the reason why you need to turn your ballots in fairly early is so our local clerk can report the election results in a timely manner. So if everybody in the county who is registered to vote turned their ballots the last day, obviously the results would not be as forthcoming, and that's why we encourage that, so it's less wear and tear on our very diligent staff, who, by the way, work around the clock 7 days a week until this is done. And so that's why. And it's an odd schedule for next week. We have no meetings on Election Day on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have meetings. We have the business meeting will be on Wednesday, the 8th, instead of Thursday, because Thursday is Veterans Day. A very big day scheduled for, anyway, on my calendar. I have a lot of meetings on Wednesday, and I have a lot of meetings on Monday of next week as well. Thank you all who came today. Gary, we've been given a list. I'm going to give you my list of the folks who say they were not notified, and you can take that list and compare it to our county staff. And I'm sure the county staff has a list. And it may be as simple as, I didn't hear the doorbell. I was out back doing, or I was taking a nap. I mean, I get packages delivered to my home, and I don't hear the Amazon driver necessarily drive up. And sometimes my dog is asleep. My watchdog is like taking a nap too. So he didn't even notice. So it could be as simple as that. There's no nefarious parts on the county staff or even this government to try to pull the wool over anybody's eyes on this. We have been presented a horrific problem, and anybody who has a solution to the problem, we are all ears. But keep one thing in mind, as long as I've been involved in government on a volunteer basis since 1987, and yes, I'm old, I have never ever seen the amount of money in government like we've had in the last year. It is in some ways obscene. I suspect the printing presses in Washington have been working overtime, and that's one of the reasons for this great recession that could be coming at us. So we have a responsibility to spend some of these monies, and in a way, if we don't do this, we could find ourselves in legal trouble as well, because we have dogs nipping at our heels to do that very thing. And we are being very mindful, we're being very proactive, we're being very careful on how we spend the money. And one of the commissioners mentioned, well, he's concerned about over time how this is paid for. The supported housing service measure, it goes for 10 years, another 8 years of guaranteed monies coming in as long as people are able to pay the taxes. That's the issue. Are people going to continue paying the taxes? Well, I've never seen anything guaranteed for 10 years of my life in government. Never. And so if you're worried about what happens 10 years from now, I doubt if any of these commissioners will be at this dais, and a lot of us may not even be around anymore. So we do what we can do in the moment. We do what we can do, what is good for the greatest good of people in Clackamas County and beyond, and that's all you can expect out of anybody. Seeing no further business before this board, we are adjourned.